And we can start.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our course on the Spiritist Review. I want to take this time to first welcome everyone who is here with us in this classroom in Zoom, but also all the ones who might be following us and joining us on YouTube in the name of the Spiritist Federation of Florida. I welcome everyone. And we are going to open our meeting today, as always, with our initial prayer. Right after that, I will talk a little bit about where we are in our journey here together. So if you're coming today, it's still a very good time to be joining us. We are still in the very beginning of this course. And then we're going to just dive right into our class for today, okay? So please join me with our initial prayer by saying, Dear Father, thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to be here today together, joining our hearts and our minds and our will in our desire to grow, to learn, and to move towards the light. We ask you to bless us all in this intent and help each one of us to be guided, to share our thoughts, our intuition, and to enjoy this time in the middle of our quite often chaotic life, where we take time to connect with those things that are so essential and important to us. For this opportunity, we're very grateful, and we ask you to bless us all. Thank you, and so be it. All right, dear friends. So again, welcome everybody. If you join us during the prayer, welcome. I do not see everybody's name, but I am noticing that a few of our friends have joined during the prayer. So it's so good to have everyone here with us today. So like I mentioned before, if you're joining us today for the first time, this is our fourth class. And so far we have gone over the Spiritist Review, like the context and, the process for Kardec, what led Kardec to put this work together, what is the content of the Spiritist Review. So our first classes, we kind of spent some time looking at, what the Spiritist Review is about. Last class was the very first class that we actually started with the Spiritist Review, and the first one from January, and we went over the introduction for this particular review. So today we are going to cover the first two articles right after the introduction, and one of them is different forms of manifestation, and the second one is different types of communication. But before that, I would like to take a few minutes, because for all classes we have some reading that we select, and sometimes we do have some homework. So last week I asked everyone to see if they could find any reference or do a little search into who was or what idea do we have about who guided Allan Kardec in the process of the codification and even inspiring him in the work of the Spiritist Review. So before I pull my presentation up, I would like to see if anyone would like to share any thoughts or anything that, you found in the Spiritist codification that could indicate who was that guided Kardec in this process. So do we have any volunteers? Remember to raise your hands and we'll go from there. I'm going to start with John. John, you need to put your microphone.
That would help. It's
Yep,
interesting.
there you go.
It's interesting for me what a dynamo this fellow was, a dynamo. It's interesting too, not directly from the sources that you say, but in other discussion groups and discussing with other people who touch with people in different countries. It seems that Kardec had a close amount of mediums and trusted people that gave him information from many sources that he thought was valuable. And I found that interesting because I really didn't get that information directly. It was kind of indirect. So in his educational background and his social background, he lived and breathed this communication with spirits, and his personal small group provided him, and his larger groups that he spoke to also provided him with information from mediums that they had, and from a lot of, I can imagine his network of people who shared and discussed incredible topics for this. I get the impression before this that he was kind of a loner person, but it seems he was very well socialized in this system, I guess you'd call it, in Spiritism.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very much so. And we did, I recall that we did also read a little bit about it in one of the slides about all kinds of communications and people, like you say, that he was in touch with and that contributed, and also to the society, the spiritual society, that, you know, he also had a lot of connections in there. So very well, that's well put, John. Thank you. And then someone wrote on the chat, the spirit of truth. And I don't know who did that. Michelle, do you have the
was
chat?
Yvonne.
Oh, Yvonne. Okay, right. So why do you say that, Yvonne? You want to share with us?
I just did some sleuthing on the internet.
That's fine.
Totally I went to Kardecpedia.
Yeah, good.
And that's where I found that information.
Okay. And okay, thank you. That's a good source indeed. Cynthia.
Hi, I would also reiterate what Yvonne said. I would say also the spirit of truth. And if we look at the gospel according to Spiritism, in the preface, you will see there that there is a message from the spirit of truth that really says that, as he's guiding the codification, that he's guiding Allan Kardec in
right.
that mission, right? In that pursuit of putting all that work together, right? There are a few others. I also was trying to look a little bit more about it. It seems that in posthumous work, there's also a passage that talks about the spirit of truth protecting and guiding Kardec throughout that portion of his life, right? Probably throughout his life, right? Until he blossomed to really start that work. And a few others. There's this beautiful article that I can share with the group, but it's in Portuguese, that also mentions bits and pieces of even the Medium's book that talks about the spirit of truth guiding Kardec.
Okay, very good. Anyone else would like to share anything? John?
While we're discussing the spirit of truth, there's question, is the spirit of truth really Jesus? And is it true? I don't know if it is true. Is it true at the end, Kardec kind of said, does it really matter? If this information is really from the good, does it really matter? Or was there something that said it really was Jesus's message?
Yep, that's right. Thank you, John, for that. Mary?
Yes. Good night, everybody. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I got from the preface of the gospel a team of evolved spirits. It says the gospel explained by the Spiritist doctrine is the third book in a series of 5, all compiled by Allan Kardec, based on the teachings of a team of evolved spirits. So it's like he had a whole team.
Right. Okay, so that's good. That's excellent. As a matter of fact, and it does get a little confusing because, for example, in Posthumous work, which we don't have in English, but the spirit identifies itself not as the spirit of truth, but the truth. There's no the spirit, so that is different. Even like the language is slightly different in different parts of the codification. So I'm going to share with you guys some passages. They're not all inclusive, and then we'll see later in the Spiritist review itself. There are some important passages that will touch into these subjects. So give me 1 second. Let me find here. Share the screen. Go there. All right, so you should be seeing my screen now. Open the slideshow. Okay. So this is what we are covering today. And this is what we are attempting to answer right now. So I'm going to go over some of the references, okay? So here we have a statement that says, for you, I shall be called truth. And every month for 15 minutes, I shall be here at your disposal. And Allan Kardec's remark, and this is in Posthumous work, the protection of that spirit whose superiority I was far from imagining, in fact, was never lacking. His solicitude and that of the good spirits who acted under his orders manifested in every circumstance of my life. So here the spirit says to be called truth. Just that, not the spirit of truth, but truth. And as we can see, Kardec is mentioning that there is this spirit, and then there is a number of spirits who are acting under this spirit truth. Then here is actually in the Spirit's book, when we see the signature of the spirits who participated, who contributed, you see that the spirit of truth is separate. So the signature was not the spirit of truth only, but it's individual names, and the spirit of truth is a name in itself. So it's kind of separated. So that's just an observation that we find in the Spirit's book. Okay, so he's Genesis and Gospel. So in Genesis, we find that are you guys? Can you hear me? Oh, okay, no, because it says here that I signed out. I wasn't sure if I was still on or not. Okay, apologies. So moving forward. So in Genesis, Spiritism fulfills all the promises of Christ regarding the foretold consoler. Thus, since it is the Spirit of truth who presides over the great movement of regeneration, the promise of its coming and thus found to have been fulfilled, because in fact, it is the true consoler. So the idea that Christ promises the consoler, and the Spirit of truth is the one who is presiding over the whole regeneration and also the coming of the consoler, which is Spiritism. So it's a hint. In the gospel, we're going to find that Spiritism has come to fulfill at the foretold time what Christ announced and to prepare the fulfillment of future things. It is therefore the work of Christ, who himself is presiding, as he also announced, over the regeneration that is occurring, and who is preparing the reign of the kingdom of God on earth. So again, a reference of Christ being the one who is presiding the whole movement of regeneration and the coming of the consoler. We also have in the Medium's book, I think Cynthia mentioned, here's a passage where it's talking about identification of spirits, just to kind of put the passage into a context. So it says, when we confront them, the spirits, with cases of identification that attest to the presence of relatives, friends, or acquaintances, to written, visual, and other means of communication, they respond that it is always the same spirit, the devil, according to some, or Christ, according to others, who assumes all forms. But they give no reason as to why other spirits cannot communicate, or why the Spirit of truth would come to fool us under false appearances in order to deceive a poor mother by pretending to be child whom she's mourning. So what's really interesting, curious about this passage from Kardec is that he uses the names interchangeably here, Christ and Spirit of truth. So in this one communication, pretty much the same paragraph, which gives us an idea, we can infer that, you know, he's referring to both as one. So that's kind of, you know, we can extrapolate and understand it this way. Then we have back in the gospel, the coming of the Spirit of truth. I have come as I once came amongst the wayward children of Israel to bring the truth and dissipate the darkness. Listen to me. Spiritism, as my word of old, must remind these believers that above them reigns the immutable truth, the good God, the great God who makes the plant germinate and raises the tides. I have revealed the divine doctrine, and like a reaper, I have gathered into sheaves the good scattered amid humankind, and have said, come unto me, all you who suffer. So it seems like we are hearing Christ himself speak in these words. So, you know, there's evidence out there, but I'm going to, you know, kind of conclude this short exercise here, which is really more meant for us to read and to go back into the books and to do some Google search. That's all valid and all good. But the conclusion is really like, you know, so does it really matter? Is this really the most important thing, whether we're able to name and say for sure it's Christ or not, right? So in any case, even if it's not exactly Christ, due to the role played during the process of Spiritist works, the codification, the Spirit of truth is aligned with the Master, designing to represent him in directing the consoling doctrine in communion also with all the higher spirituality and with God, because in this aspect, the real value is in the work done, regardless of the author. So the bottom line is that, as it says here, right, it's much less about determining and saying for sure who's the author. The spirit of truth, some people believe that sometimes it's referring to a group of spirits, sometimes it's Christ himself. So the bottom line is, whether it's one another, we see the coherence, we see that, you know, the ideas are aligned, and the most important thing is the outcome of the work. Same thing with Spiritist messages. A lot of times people get super caught up in, you know, who is the spirit, right? And that creates a little bit of confusion sometimes. But we should be really, really spending our time and our energy to verify the content of the message that's delivered. That's much more important at the end than who is the author, because a lot of times the good spirits and the more evolved spirits, what they will do is they will actually hide behind a kind of a fake name, precisely because they don't want the message to be about them, and they want for people to really focus on what's being said and not who is saying. So I hope these can enlighten you a little bit. And again, there's a lot more references as such in the across all the books and posthumous work and the Spiritist review as well. Fatima, I think it's Fatima. Maybe David, who knows?
Apologies, we had a bit of trouble getting onto Zoom, so we arrived a bit late, so maybe my comments are redundant, but yeah, it's the message, not the messenger. I agree. John called me this morning and saying, I can't get onto Kardecpedia. So I said, I was by the computer, so I tried to get on, and I couldn't get on either. So I can only conclude that your challenge of finding information sent everybody to Kardecpedia, and the system crashed, I think. So you overloaded.
Oh my goodness. That is funny.
Is an excellent reference. I mean, it's just a word.
Yes.
But you put a phrase in Kardecpedia and it'll tell you all the, you know, all the items from all the 5 books where that phrase appears.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. All right, folks. So let's move on into our lesson for today. Okay, so in starting with the Spirits review, right, with the different forms of manifestations. So we're going to see at the very beginning of the chapter that this is, you know, kind of the first writings, I apologize, of Kardec. So he opens the magazine, basically, okay, there's all this phenomena happening over here, right? And so he starts to try to make sense of the phenomena, try to organize the type of phenomena. So this, let's remember, comes before the medium's book. So we see that he is, again, starting to create a system to observe all that phenomena and say, okay, sometimes the phenomena is out there, everybody's seeing, but sometimes it's very subtle. And, you know, not all messages have high level content, and some manifestations seem to have one goal while others have a different goal. So basically he starts to create a system, and that's what these 2 first articles talk about. So as you read, if you have already read the medium's book, you're going to realize that the system is a little different. There are different words that he uses here, and he's going to use later on in the medium's book. So that's just something for us to keep in mind. But he's going to say that the spirits, they're going to be present in many different ways. And again, according to the aptitude, their will, they may or may not want to be there, and whether they are a higher level or a lower level spirit, these all are going to have an impact on the type of manifestation as well as the content of the manifestation. Okay, so then after that, he's going to tell us that, you know, the communications, they can be summarized in these different categories. So they can be hidden. Someone can give me an example of a hidden manifestation. What would that be? One example of hidden manifestation. What would that be?
Would that be an inspiration?
Very good. Yes, an inspiration. My dogs are going crazy. I apologize. I hope you guys, it's not too disturbing to them barking so much. Okay. Then you have the obvious actions, right? So that we can see in some way becomes obviously captured by our senses. We have what he's going to call the physical or material manifestations. And I think somewhere in this text, there's like, you know, these are the ones that are there to attract our attention. So I really like the analogy that he uses in the text when he says, you know, it's very much when someone knocks on the door of your house. Well, why is there people knocking on the door? Because they want you to know that they are there. So the physical manifestations have this purpose. The spirits wanted us to know that they are there. They basically to call our attention. And then we have the visual or the apparitions, the intelligent manifestations, basically any manifestation that, you know, we can say that there is an intelligence behind the manifestation. So some sort of message or information is being conveyed through the manifestation. And the communications, because some phenomena, it's just a phenomenon, it's just a noise, but there's really no communication going on other than, again, calling attention. But communications, again, there's some ideas they are being conveyed through that manifestation. So these are like the initial categories that he's going to put the manifestations under. And then he's going to go on to say that they can be secretive, open, spontaneous, and induced. Now, spontaneous and induced are not in the Spiritist review. This is something that he's going to add in the what is Spiritism in item 25. If you guys have the book, now would be a good time to open it. So I'm gonna give you like a minute, not a whole minute, just like a few seconds. Cynthia, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say on the previous page.
Go ahead.
It seems that some of these types, they would somehow overlap, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. It's a good observation. So an example would be, for example, let me go back here. So when he talks about intelligent manifestations and communication, right? So intelligent manifestations are always communicating something, I would say. But the communications here, they, you know, under them, you have the written, the verbal communication, and then some other categories that go under communication, but you're absolutely right. Okay, so it's interesting because So hopefully everybody has item 25 open over there. So he's going to say here that the communications, they can be, the communications between the visible and invisible world may be secretive or open, spontaneous or induced. So spirits act upon humans secretively through the thoughts they suggest to them and through certain influences. And they act openly through effects discernible to the senses. And then he's going to also come up with spontaneous and induced manifestations. The spontaneous occur unexpectedly and fortuitously. Quite often they occur to persons unfamiliar with spiritist ideas and who for that very reason cannot understand them. Consequently, they attribute them to supernatural causes. And manifestations that are induced occur by means of certain individuals endowed with special faculties for producing such effects and who are designated by the name mediums. So just adding to this system of classification, these observations that he brings here on these item 25. All right, so let's move on. Our next slide. So here I want to bring back to you guys this slide from our previous class. And because again, so where in this slide, I had asked the question, where do we study the phenomena? And, you know, I had brought the answer that we can go to the medium's book, to the second part, the spirit's manifestation, which will be consulting, Genesis, and also the laws. And I'm going to read this paragraph again. They are phenomena induced according to the law that governs the exchange between the visible and invisible world. A law as natural as the law of electricity, gravity, etc. Spiritism is the science that enables us to know about this law, just the mechanics enable us to know about the law of motion and optics, the law of light. Being part of nature, spirit's manifestations have been produced in all ages. Once understood, the law governing them explains a series of problems that used to be considered solvable. It is the key to a multitude of phenomena exploited and amplified by superstition. So that's here in what is Spiritism, item 32. And today, that's precisely what we are going to do. So we are going to kind of dive into some of these laws. We are going to understand some of the mechanisms and the laws that Spiritism explains, and that with that understanding, what used to be so like, wow, you know, and like seems unnatural, now becomes, you know, natural and not miraculous, because again, it falls under these laws. So I would like to take a little bit of time to review some concepts with you guys, some basic principles, because we have a group here. I think a lot of people are familiar with the concepts, but they are very key for us to understand what comes next. It's much better, it's much nicer when we're reading things and in the back of our minds, we have an understanding of how those things are happening. And so bear with me, we're gonna kind of take a step back before we take some steps forward. So let's go to the Spirit's book. And again, I'm gonna give you time to kind of find yourself over there. We are going to question 27 first. And let me get my Spirit's book, which, believe it or not, it's not on my desk. I have many books on my desk, but not my Spirit's book. So forgive me. It is now. And I am going to open myself on question 27. It's so nice to study with the books in our hands and just, I see my kids doing everything on iPads, all their notes and stuff like that. And I'm like, I need to reincarnate because on this lifetime is too much for me. I can't get over like the excitement of having a book in my hand and being able to write and flip the pages and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So question 27, Kardec is going to ask the spirit. So are there two general elements in the universe, matter and spirit? So without looking at the answer, who can tell me what the answer is? Because I have scholars here in this classroom who have studied the Spirit's book, Genesis, the whole codification. So I'm sure you guys can help me without reading the answer. And together, maybe we can put the whole answer together. So what is the answer? So are there two general elements in the universe, matter and spirit? Who wants to get started? David, thumbs up. But go ahead and speak up. What thumbs up means?
Well, I'm cheating because I already read it. As soon as you said 27, I opened the book.
Yeah.
But the answer is yes, and over everything is God, the creator and author of all. So, and those are three elements of the universe. So really, is it two? Is it three? Got to consider God also.
Right. So we have, and the elements are matter, spirit, and God. And where is the universal cosmic fluid in this equation?
I assume it permeates all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to highlight. Let's read together this answer. I think it's worthwhile to review. Yes, and over everything is God, the creator and author of all. These three elements comprise the principle of all that exists, is the universal Trinity. So all that is in the universe is either God, matter, or spirit, okay? But to the element of matter must be added the universal fluid. Now, let's see what it says here, which plays an intermediary role between spirit and matter per se, since matter is too dense for spirit to act upon it directly. Although, from a certain point of view, this fluid may be regarded as part of the material element, it differs from it due to its two special properties. So basically what it's saying here is that the fluid, the universal cosmic fluid differs than matter. It's not the same of matter, but can be regarded as matter. It has different qualities than matter. But the most important thing to know is that this fluid is the element that actually allows the spirit to act upon matter. And it is the universal cosmic fluid, that the force that's going to keep the molecules together, and that actually, it's necessary for gravity to play the role that it plays. That's here in this answer as well. If it were simply matter, then there would be no reason for spirit not to be matter too. It is placed between spirit and matter, yet it is fluid, just as matter is matter. In its countless combinations with matter and under the direction of spirit, it is susceptible of producing an infinite variety of things about which you still know very, very little. By being the agent upon which spirit acts, this universal primitive or elementary fluid is the principle without which matter would forever maintain in a state of dispersion, and it would never acquire the properties given to it by cohesion. Okay, very important concept to know if we're going to talk about mediumship, if we're going to talk about manifestations, because the whole phenomena happens. These are the elements of the phenomena. Without understanding these elements, it's hard to understand how the phenomena takes place. So if we need to simplify, again, there are three main elements in the universe: God, spirit, and matter. And you have the universal cosmic fluid, which is not matter necessarily, although we think of it as such, but it has different properties of matter. But it's this fluid that is necessary for the spirit to act upon matter. Now, there is another important information that's not here, which is about the perispirit. So we also know that the perispirit, when we incarnate in a certain planet, the perispirit will take from the universal cosmic fluid of that planet, and that is going to be incorporated into the perispirit itself. It dresses itself with that fluid, so to speak. So the fluid is also part of the perispirit. Okay, so any questions with that? Is that too confusing? Do we have clarity on that? So three main elements in the universe, and then you have the universal cosmic fluid, that is the element in the middle between matter and spirit. So the spirit needs the universal cosmic fluid in order to act on matter. And the perispirit, which is the spirit body, takes from the universal fluid of the planet that is in before it incarnates. Okay, so that was this question. And then we're going to go now to questions 64 and 67. So 64 to 67. So let's all go there. Okay, I found mine. And so here we have seen that spirit and matter are two elements comprising the universe. Oh boy, now he's going to ask about another element. And this element now is the vital principle. Does the vital principle form a third? So we have spirit and matter, and now he's talking about the vital principle. It is certainly one of the elements required in the composition of the universe, but it has its origin in the modifications of the universal matter. You may regard it as an element like oxygen or hydrogen, but even these are not truly primitive elements because they all derive from one and the same principle. So, and then there's a little note that would seem to imply that vitality does not result from a distinct primitive agent, but rather from a special property of the universal matter, which has undergone certain modifications. That follows from what we have just stated. Okay, so this is another element, right? So we have this principle called vital principle, that is another element in the universe, and that is necessary to give vitality, to give life. So to give life to the material element. Okay, so we have spirit, matter, and God. We have the universal cosmic principle, and now we have the vital principle. Mary.
Yes, can you hear me?
Now,
Okay. I have a different version of the Spirits book.
yeah,
And in this answer, I think it makes it a little bit more understandable, at least to me. Is it okay if I read it?
yes,
It
for
says
64.
464, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it says the vital principle is a necessary element in the structure of the universe, but it has its source in a special modification of the cosmic principle or fluid. For you, it is an element like oxygen or hydrogen, although these elements are not basic at all. In fact, all the elements known to you, however simple they seem, are modifications of the cosmic principle.
Mm-hmm. It's
Simple,
fine.
but yeah,
Go ahead.
it says simple, but the vital principle is not a distinct primitive agent. It results from a special modification of the cosmic principle.
Mm-hmm.
Simply put,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
No, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. And then on question 65, does the vital principle reside in any of the bodies known to us? Its source is in the universal fluid. It is what you call the magnetic fluid or the animalized electric fluid, an intermediary, the link between spirit and matter. So the source of the vital principle is the universal fluid, as we have read. So it's a modification of this fluid. And he continues on by asking, is the vital principle the same for all organic beings? Yes, but it is modified according to each species. It is this principle that enables them to move and be active. It also distinguishes them from inert matter, because the movement of matter per se is not life. Matter is moved. It does not produce movement itself. So I think here the point that he's going to make is modified, so it's not going to be exactly the same for each species. And again, I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone knows exactly, about these modifications and the specificity of the fluid per species. I don't think that I am aware of known anywhere else. But again, it's what gives life, enables them to move and to be active. So that's the important concept that we have to gather from here. And the last one is vitality a permanent attribute of the vital agent, or does it only develop through the functioning of the organs? It develops only as the body develops. So it only becomes this agent once it's connected to matter. Haven't we already stated that without matter, this agent is not in itself life? The union of the two is necessary to produce life. And we're going to stop right here, because the point's not to do an in-depth study of these elements, but just to recall the existence of these elements, because knowing them, it's going to be important. It's going to be important in understand how a table moves, for example. Okay, all these elements that we are talking about are present in the phenomena when a table is moving. And so if we're going to talk about that, it's good that we have in our minds an understanding of how this is happening. Any questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, which I'm assuming there isn't, then we're going to go now and look at the concept of perispirit. And, although this is not a cloud, this, it's coming from a chimney here. But I think this picture gives us a really nice idea of a perispirit. because of, the kind of the ethereal nature of it. And we're going to go to questions 93 and 93 to 95. So here we go. 93. Okay, so question 93. Is the spirit per se without a covering? Or, as some insist, is it surrounded by some kind of substance? And the answer is, the spirit is surrounded by a substance that might look vaporous to you, but which is still quite dense to us. Nevertheless, it is sufficiently vaporous to be able to raise itself up into the atmosphere and travel to wherever it wants to go. As a fruit seed is enveloped by the perispherm, the spirit per se is surrounded by an envelope, which by comparison may be called the perispirit. Where does the spirit get the semi-material envelope? From each globe's own universal fluid. So this is what we were talking about, right? That is why the perispirit is not the same on all worlds. In passing from one world to another, spirits change their envelope just as you change your clothes. Then when spirits from more highly evolved worlds come to ours, do they take on a denser perispirit? They have to clothe themselves with your matter, as we have already said. Does the spirit's semi-material envelope have a specific form, and can it be seen? Yes, a form according to the spirit's evolution. And that is how it sometimes appears to you in dreams or in the waking state by taking on a visible or even tangible form. So again, another important concept, and just to review. So hopefully with that, and if anyone is unfamiliar, is absolutely confused or lost, please let us know after, send us a message, and want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with this concept, so that we can move forward, okay? Thumbs up for Andrea?
Yep.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure everything was okay. All right. So based on the studies related to natural laws and spiritist phenomena, explain the turning tables. Does anyone would like to take this moment and give us, to the best of your knowledge, an explanation on how the spirit moved the tables? And we did a quick review of some of the elements that are part of the equation. So anyone would like to give it a try? You can, even if maybe you have an idea, maybe it's not 100% accurate, but it might be close. You might have some of the elements. If you don't know the entire process, you can say, well, I know this plays a role. So, Mary.
Okay, I'm going to try.
Go for it.
Okay, so the spirit will manipulate the fluid, the cosmic fluid, with the medium's ectoplasm.
Okay.
So the spirits will manipulate the fluids, but we need a medium in a room, right? With the what do you call it? Animal fluid.
Yeah, with the animal fluid.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So you bring two elements, the cosmic fluid and the animal fluid. Okay. We're missing an important element in here. And a component. But it's a great start. Great start.
Okay, somebody out there. The movie Ghost keeps coming to my mind. When the ghost and the train, it comes from the gut and then he moves the soda can and he throws it when he's teaching him how to do it. That always
Yeah.
comes to mind.
Yeah, that is a great example. And we have a lot of, I have. My mom has a first cousin in Brazil who had a dance studio. And for many years, I heard of like all kinds of physical phenomena happening in the dance studio, to the point that sometimes the mirrors would crack and things like that. So I kind of grew up hearing these stories. So how do the spirits do that? But in particular, in this case, how do they move something from one place to another? Anyone else has any idea or want to help Mary here? Oh, and he could just materialize himself in front of the cameras. That's also a phenomenon of the internet. Okay, so if there are no other brave soul, let's see what we can come up with. So let me move here. Let me look at the time, 7:26. So we have a few more minutes. So this is from the Medium's book, right? Chapter 4, explanation of the physical manifestation. So anyone can go back to the Medium's book and we'll find like the full explanation over there. But so we have this question here. And the answer is, it combines a portion of the universal fluid with the fluid emitted by the medium in order to move it, which is precisely what Mary just told us. Now, on question 9, here we are, again, Medium's book, continue on. Cynthia has raised her hand. So let's go to Cynthia.
Actually, I have a question about that answer. It says universal fluid. I would have thought that is the vital principle. Evidently, I'm wrong, but
no, you're not wrong. Let's just continue on.
Okay.
Give
Good.
it
I don't
a
feel
little
as
time. Okay, so do spirits lift tables using the arms, which have become solidified somehow? So that would be an idea, right? So you materialize your arm or make it solid so you can now touch the table. And the answer is, the spirit who has been evoked has taken enough of the universal fluid to infuse the table with artificial life. Having prepared the table in this way, the spirit attracts it and moves it under the influence of its own fluid, which it emits by exerting its own will. So Mary had also mentioned about the spirit's will. So we have the universal fluid. We have the spirit is going to attract using his own fluid. And he's going to do that by surrounding the table with his own perispirit, because as we know, the perispirit has properties such as expansion, flexibility. And so part of the phenomena is the perispirit involving, surrounding the object with its own fluid. Now, let's continue on. So what role does the medium play in this phenomenon? I have already said that the medium's own fluid is combined with universal fluid accumulated by the spirit. So we have the universal cosmic fluid, we have this medium's own fluid, we have the spirit's fluid. All these are elements of the process. So I put here a little kind of a scheme to help us. So we have the universal cosmic fluid, you have the medium fluid or animalized fluid, you have the perispirit fluid, And so it is a combination of these fluids that end up vitalizing the table. And the spirit's going to use its own will to turn the table. So the table becomes alive momentarily under the influence of these fluids. Now, when we are talking about the universal cosmic fluid, and I'm going to get to Cynthia's comment. So the universal cosmic fluid in its variations as well. So it is immersed with some sort of vitality, which makes it able to move under the will of the spirit. And I'm going to get to you, Yvonne, in a minute. So let me just conclude here. So whenever the table, so now let's read what is in here and what is Spiritist. Whenever the table becomes detached from the floor and floats in the air without any means of support, the spirit's not using its arm. The spirit's not materializing itself, but envelops it and penetrates it with a sort of fluidic atmosphere that neutralizes the effects of gravity, like the air in balloons and paper kites. When the table chases someone, it's not the spirit who is doing the chasing, because it can remain peacefully in the same spot while moving the table by means of fluidic current that enables it to move the table at will. So it is a combination of all those fluids, and that's why we review the fluids: the universal cosmic fluid, the medium fluid, the perispirit fluid. The combination of all those fluids are going to vitalize that table. And under the spirit's will, which is being communicated to the table, because the perispirit itself is surrounding, penetrating that table. And so it becomes a conductor of that order. And that moves the table from point A to point B. So it's not that the spirit that is chasing someone. The spirit is in one place with its will and using and manipulating all these fluids. It gives the table the vitality and the ability to even to lift in the air, right? Because it eliminates the effect of gravity. All right, so let me stop here. Hold on 1 second. And I'm gonna pass to you guys. Okay, so I think Yvonne raised her hand first.
Yeah, Yvonne, and
Oh.
after David and Fatima.
Yes, I just remember also that the spirits that do this are the less evolved spirits. They're not the highly, evolved ones. They will even use the less evolved spirits to execute these actions. So it's not any high order spirits that's doing this.
And why is that?
Because the highly evolved spirits, their fluids can't harmonize with us on our level.
That's correct. So, well, yes. So they probably could if they want, but it would be a lot more work, right? So they would have to make themselves more dense. So they are more ethereal. So to be in combination and affecting matter to this extent, and that's why we did the human fluid as well. There's all these combinations of fluids are necessary in order to make the table move. So the low spirits, they're closer to the material realm. They are better fit for this type of action. And the high spirits usually don't concern themselves with this type of phenomena. They're busier taking care of our pains and sufferings and things like that. But yes, that's a great answer. You guys now, David.
No, just a question. For the physical effects to take place, is the medium essential? In other words, can we have physical effects without there being a medium there? I mean, you quoted the example of the mirrors breaking in the dance room, right? Was there any medium? Is that an essential component to make that happen?
Yeah, the medium is always necessary for this type of phenomena. Sometimes the medium is unconscious. So the spirits will withdraw the fluid, the animal fluid, but there is a medium somewhere that is being used, someone with that capacity. So it's a great question. And yes, it's necessary. Andrea.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize, because you said something really important. You said a medium somewhere. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the medium is in the actual place where the physical effect is taking place. It could be a neighbor. It could be any other medium around the area from which they withdraw that ectoplasm to be able to do the physical manifestation.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so let's see what comes next here. So I hope this makes more sense for everybody. So right here, I love this picture. Wow, very cool. So that's from What is Spiritism, item 31 here. When raps are heard within the table or somewhere else, the spirit's not beating it with its hand or with some other object. It is directing a jet of fluid that produces the effect of an electric-like jolt at the point where the noise is heard. It can change the noise, just as the sound produced by the action of air can be changed. So I think that's a lot of people think that actually the spirit is banging the table or the surface with some sort of materialized, tool, which is not the way it happens. So again, it's all about manipulation of fluid. So it's a jet of fluid that is actually producing the noise, and not that the spirit is banging on that surface with anything. I don't know if you guys knew about that or not. And then I think he's still in this first, let me get my book here. We have, finishing the first article on item 7, the communications. The last sentence is going to say that these communications is about the communications. They can be frivolous, rude, serious, or instructive. And we understand that. I put some references here. We're not going to go into that. But if anyone feels it would be good to review the different order of spirits and Spirits book, question 96 to 113, which goes over, different levels of spirits in terms of awareness, conscious, evolution. And what we know in Spiritism is that once we pass away, we pass away and we wake up in the spiritual realm exactly the same way we are. There is no miraculous change or betterment or anything like that. So there are all kinds of spirits, just like there's all kinds of spirits inside the bodies at this moment. So the messages can be, of all different types. And also in the Medium's book, chapter 10, Nature of Communication. So I think this is pretty straightforward here at the book. So it talks about, the frivolous, being given usually by mischievous spirits, and the rude by messages that kind of shock the decorum. They all by kind of lower level spirits in terms of awareness. And then you have the serious and the instructive messages. And so for the instructive communications, and this will be our last slides for today, but I wanted to emphasize that because these are more or less profound and more or less truthful in accordance to the degree of elevation and dematerialization of the spirit. In order to take real advantage of those communications, they must be regular and followed with perseverance. The serious spirits associate themselves with those who want instruction and help. They leave to the frivolous spirits the task of engaging with those individuals who do not see in these manifestations as anything but a pastime. So even in communications who bring instructions, we have to keep in mind that the spirits don't know everything. And even if they are more evolved than us, they still may not know everything. And so just having that in mind whenever we are going through any communication is a very important element. And it's something that, we talk a lot about in Spiritism, the ability to read and to recognize when it's a serious communication and something that can be taken more seriously. Only through regularity and frequency of communications can one appreciate the more intellectual value of the spirit with whom we entertain ourselves, as well as the degree of trust they deserve. If it is necessary to have experience to be able to judge the human beings, it is even more so to judge the spirits. So sometimes it takes a number of communications for us to get to know that spirit and really be able to verify if the spirit is someone that can be trusted, is someone that really is as knowledgeable as it appears to be. A lot of spirits can use some fancy language and kind of throw out some pretty concepts. And if we are just very, naive, we can be easily seduced and easily taken by those ideas and consider that we are dealing with a higher entity when in fact it's all, appearance, but there is no real essence to what is being said. Okay, so we're gonna stop here today. Before we close our class today, are there any questions or any final comments? Anyone would like to say anything? Cynthia.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I thought when I read this chapter, it was, I think, a very important thing what they said and that you read in that previous slide, that it's very similar to what happens with our human experience, right? We cannot just go around believing what everybody says. Like an analogy, the internet. You cannot go looking for something that you're searching and just finding a website or an article and just taking it without knowing who's behind that article, right? So I thought it was a little bit more tangible to really how to see this difficult task, which is to identify what spirits is serious, what we should, give any value. But if we think about our own experience, right, unless we are really naive, but we're not going to just believe what our neighbor told us to do to cure something, right? We're going to look for scholars for legitimacy. I thought that was a very good example of how to follow that, because it's usually very difficult, right? People say, how I'm going to know if the spirit is true, if it's a good spirit or not, right? And I thought it was a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Today was a little heavy. The review of concepts and things like that, but I think it will help us to move forward with a little bit more space. We'll get into the type of communications next week. So for next class, we don't have any assigned reading, but I recommend that we read the article again, the one that we'll be discussing next week, just to kind of refresh our minds before the class. And if you have not yet read the what is Spiritism, the items that were selected for this class, also go ahead and read it, or you can do a review. I hope that now after we kind of review the concepts and talk about them, if you go back and read again, it's gonna come like, more, it's gonna make more sense. It's gonna be an easier reading. And that's really how it's hard to keep all those things if we're just listening. But if you read, now we talk about it, we discuss, we went back to the principles, and you read again, little by little, you become more and more acquainted. And something that you heard at first and didn't seem to make a lot of sense, once you go over again, now I get it. Now it starts to make sense little by little. Okay. All right, guys. Wonderful. I'm gonna ask Cynthia, since you participated so much today, I really appreciated that. Would you do the prayer for us today?
Of course, it will be my pleasure. So at the end of this enlightening exercise, we elevate our thoughts once more to thank all the high spirituality, the spirits, superior spirits that have an interest in this group, along with the individual mentors of each one of us, to give us the encouragement, the incentive to continue searching this enlightenment, to continue looking for ways of learning, that all this learning permeate our spirits, our minds, and in our hearts, and that we may transform all of this little or lot that we learn every day into our everyday conduct, bringing the light of Spiritism